Hey everyone, in this video I want to explain the practice session that we'll be doing this week to make sure that we all understand what this activity entails, make sure that we're actually doing something that will be worth our while. So this practice session follows the short essay on going down the rabbit hole, where Miller and Jurecic are talking about that extraordinary kind of research, artifying the things that we research, making it special, following that white rabbit. So that's kind of a metaphor for the thing that catches our attention and pulls us down to a fundamental question or some sort of insight or connection that we hadn't previously encountered. So this is in contrast to what they call ordinary research. Ordinary means just run-of-the-mill, everyday, humdrum, boring. And extraordinary means something that is out of the ordinary, right? So not every day, something that is special. And so to practice this kind of research, which is the type of research that we're going to want to employ when we're working on Major Essay Project 3 and the annotated bibliography that goes along with that project, we want to practice that with this activity that they call drilling down. So let me go ahead and read through this, and then what I'm going to do, I'll sort of model this process for you so we all understand it. So practice session 1, part 1, drilling down. The habits that this activity is helping us create is exploring, questioning, working deliberately. And the activities that we'll do in this practice session are note-taking, reading, and researching. Type Ellen Dissanayake into the Google search engine. Press enter. Everyone who does this at the same time is likely to get very similar results. We can call this ordinary research. If you click on the Wikipedia entry for Dissanayake, you'll find yourself on a page that provides a thumbnail sketch of the author and her work. Again, in gaining this foothold on Dissanayake's work, you'll be doing what any ordinary researcher starting out would do. It's what you do next that matters. Choose one of Dissanayake's works that you find online and read it. Your next task is to make your research into this researcher of the extraordinary, extraordinary. We composed that last sentence with Alice's Adventures in Wonderland in mind, so they're being a little cheeky here with that sentence. Set aside at least an hour for exploratory research. Begin by choosing a phrase, a quotation, a reference, or a footnote from the Dissanayake work you read, and then do another Google search. Read 2 or more of the recommended links. Then choose a phrase, a quotation, a reference, or a footnote from the second set of works and do another Google search. Repeat, repeat, and repeat again until you've burrowed down to an insight or a question that you yourself find extraordinary. We call this process, where you move from one linked source to the next, drilling down. Spend at least 30 minutes reflecting on this process. As you drill down in your research, beginning with your first search about Dissanayake and ending with an extraordinary insight or question, how did you distinguish between ordinary and extraordinary moments of discovery? What choices yielded genuine surprises? Begin a list of useful strategies to include in your repertoire as a curious researcher, a list you can add to as you continue to practice drilling down. So just a note here, it's really important that we set aside an hour or at least an hour for exploratory research. And again, we want to make sure that we spend at least 30 minutes reflecting on this process in writing. And so your reflection, what you spend your time writing, will be what you post to the discussion. Now, to go back to this, it's important that you set aside at least an hour because we want to make sure we're allowing ourselves enough time to really immerse ourselves into this process. If we don't set aside that amount of time, we're not doing this activity adequately, and therefore it's not worth our time. So we want to make sure that we allow ourselves that time to immerse in this and to go down that rabbit hole, so to speak. So let's go ahead and try this out. So you will kind of follow along here. And of course, I'm only going to do a portion of it. It's up to you then to follow those metaphorical white rabbits, the things that catch your specific attention. But I just want to show you the process. So I'm going to type in Ellen Dissanayake into Google. Okay, so she comes up already. So I'm going to press enter. So Miller and Jurecic point out that this is what anybody would do. It's an ordinary step in the research. It's every day. So they say, click on the Wikipedia page. So I'm going to check this out just to get a sense of who this person is. I'm willing to bet that most, if not all of you, have never even heard of this person. I know I had never heard of her before I picked up my first copy of Habits of the Creative Mind. So it's important that we check this out, see a little bit about who she is. So we have a biography here, you know, her education, her background, that sort of thing. Then we have this outline of probably her most famous work. It's called Homo Aestheticus, Where Art Comes From and Why. And then we have a bibliography, a list of the different books that she's written. So she has a book called What is Art For? And again, yeah, Homo Aestheticus. And she has some articles, several articles that she's published over the years, some references that whoever created the Wikipedia page used to create that, external links so you can go to her website. You can check out an excerpt from her book, Homo Aestheticus. So what I need to do is try to find a work of hers on the internet that I can read. So I'm going to go ahead and click back and just go back to that initial search result. I'm going to click on this next one, Ellen Dissanayake, and then it's from this website called the Evolution Institute. So I'm going to click on that. So this is not a work by her. This is a little bit more background information. But if I keep reading, I can see, oh, okay, they refer me to her website. So you could check out her website. But I'm going to go to her page on academia.edu. And I suggest that you all do the same thing just to make sure that you can actually find one of her works, because this is an aggregation of works that you can check out of hers online. So let's go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and just click on this. And wonderful, I have a PDF of this particular work. So what you would do is you would begin reading it. And as you're reading it, you would want to pay attention to things that stand out to you as interesting, important, or confusing. So if you come across something, you're like, what the heck is that? Or, oh, that sounds interesting. Or, oh, I have a question about that. What you would do is then do a Google search for that. So you would want to read enough of this so you can actually get a sense of what it's about, or at least, you know, some ideas in here. Okay, so she mentions this person, Henry Purcell. So I'm going to go ahead and do a Google of that person, Henry Purcell. Okay, so he looks like some old composer. Interesting. So what I would then do is, you know, I'm just going to click on one of the links. I'm going to read through it. Oh, Henry Purcell. Huh, okay. Interesting. Now, when you read this, you'd want to find something that, again, catches your interest, something that's interesting, important, or confusing, and then you would do yet another Google search of that. So just right off the bat, I'm looking at this Castle Tavern. That sounds really interesting. So I'm going to go ahead and do a Google search of that. Castle Tavern South. What is this? So let's click on that. Okay, so it's an actual tavern. Excellent. So maybe this wouldn't be that interesting, but I could then, you know, maybe it is interesting to me. So shortly after World War II, the Castle Shannon Coal Company closed its doors. Oh, so maybe I would then say, what is the Castle Shannon Coal Company? I would then do Castle Shannon Coal Company. Another Google search. Let's click on that. Okay, so now I've encountered some different things that have led me quite far away from the initial Ellen Dissanayake search. And so you're going to do this for at least an hour, and you're going to actually spend more time reading through these. You're not going to just skim through like I did, but just for the sake of example. And then you want to keep track of that. So keep notes, some things that stand out to you, jot them down in your notebook. And then once you've explored, you've burrowed down the rabbit hole for at least an hour, you'll spend 30 minutes writing a reflection on where that exploration took you and the things that stood out to you as interesting, important, or confusing. The things that were extraordinary, right? So one of the things that Miller and Jurecic ask you to think about is determining those moments that were just ordinary research. So it's just kind of like the whatever Google search where you just say, oh, okay, Wikipedia, there it is. Versus the extraordinary, where you're actually following a question that arose for you or something that stood out to you is out of the ordinary, right? And so again, your reflection on that, what you type down or create in writing for those 30 minutes of reflection after you've done the research is what you're going to post to the discussion board. Okay, so the point of this is, again, to kind of get lost in that research process. So really to follow the things that catch your interest. So again, in order to do this effectively where it's actually worth your time, you need to spend the time that Miller and Jurecic dictate here. So at least an hour of exploratory research and then at least 30 minutes reflecting on that process in writing. I'm also going to recommend that you kind of clear yourself of distractions, install yourself so that you can kind of focus on this. All right, y'all. Well, I'm looking forward to reading your exploratory reflections and seeing what you guys come up with. So